Hey y'all, it's Dustin.
And Burton.
And Uncle Cha-Cha.
For those of you who are catching up with us, we purchased my family's farm. It hasn't been in service for over 30 years, so we're here to bring it back to life.
Yes, and we are doing this with the help of my brother, who is Uncle Cha-Cha.
We couldn't do this without Uncle Cha-Cha.
That's true.
Yeah.
So my brother, Uncle Cha-Cha, he is a landscape architect, he's a horticulturist, he's a builder, he's a designer, and we knew that he would be the perfect fit to help us create our dreams here on the farm. If you have been following our journey, you know that we purchased this farm and that we are working hard to get this up and running, but we haven't given you guys an update in a while. So we thought this would be the perfect time to catch up to speed and let Uncle Cha-Cha show us around and tell us what's happening on the farm.
So Uncle Cha-Cha, what's been happening on the farm?
So what we've been doing out here is really just a lot of cleanup and assessing the land. It hasn't been used in 30 years, and even though we've spent a little bit of time out here in the past, it's really getting familiar with the land.
I love that my brother is a landscape architect, especially because I feel like a lot of people, if they were to come on a new piece of property and didn't have the background that he has, they could easily just mow down every tree in sight. But my brother, I feel like, is really working with the natural landscape, really mindful of the trees that are existing here and even the natural landscape of our farm. Why are you doing that?
The biggest reason is you can't recreate some of the stuff that's happening out here just due to time. Other main reason why has to do with water.
And for those of you who have not seen the farm, we'll kind of give a tour today, but you'll notice how much vegetation there is. It's not a normal farm. There's a lot of water features here to this. There's lakes and streams, but also the hills are very rolling here too.
Right.
So water is an important aspect in how water flows throughout the farm.
And the trees and plants and undergrowth that are a part of any landscape are helping take that water and slow it down, bring it back into the natural filter that is soil. That's why clear cutting and scraping land is so bad for the water system. Which, by the way, the other perk of this land, the reason why we have all of this water, is it goes into what is Raleigh's natural water retention system. So ultimately, all of this is then going into other people's homes and faucets and all of that. So
a good portion of our land actually borders the water conservation district of Raleigh.
Yeah, and because of that, we really want to be mindful of what we're doing to the land and what might be going into that water, and just being really, really cautious of that. You hear the word sustainability a lot of times. How are we trying to be a sustainable farm?
Something that you didn't mention is the landscape architecture and all of that, but I also have a little bit of a background in permaculture. And permaculture is a word that exists. It's not used a whole lot. It's a methodology that deals with basically a whole living system. No singular parts of a system. Every single part of the system feeds off of one another. As far as sustainability goes, some of those practices are focused on with the farm, because ultimately what sustainable means is that when you're doing your systems, it's an equal sums. It's like this circle theory, because everything is feeding off of everything. And when things are not sustainable, then you're having to bring in an outside element. And over time, that is what is not sustainable.
From a resource perspective, that's bad, but also from a cost perspective, there's an economic perspective to this too, where we can preserve what's here and reuse that without having to bring in these external components that cost us money.
That's right. Yeah. When, part of the plant assessment is we are looking at things, and what people can traditionally view as weeds can actually be fodder for animals, sometimes plants, and utilizing those things rather than just trying to eradicate them. Can they actually be beneficial? Can you use that as a supplement? A farm can mean many different things. And my primary background is in plants, but animals are going to be a part of this farm. Part of that sustainability is, even if we are raising animals on the farm that might not even end up being food, they play a key role because there's this book that was given to me just last year, but it's called Everybody Poops. And so do animals. Really, truthfully, that's something that might not be talked a lot about, which is that one of the best benefits that animals give is the poop.
Natural fertilizer.
That's right, natural fertilizer. Rather than trying to do a chemical fertilizer, or you're making compost and you're adding that. Part of sustainability plays into, well, all right, so now you have plants that you're growing and you have animals, and so how are you positioning these on your farm? Water runs downhill. And that's like one of the first things that you right. One of the first things that you learn any kind of like landscape and design program. And so if you take that same kind of concept, think about where one thing that might be feeding another thing. Well, if you're putting it downhill, then you're having to bring that up. And not only is it not going to naturally run down that way, then it takes extra energy for you to bring it back up. And so part of our staging of how we're positioning where our field crops are growing crops, and so where some of our animals are, is with that kind of in mind, that basically they're going to poop, and so we can collect that, but it's also naturally going to be going downhill.
Creating at the bottom of where maybe creating a retention pond and creating a mixture of the two. You may have to pump it back up to some other areas of the farm, but still you have that natural fertilizer and can reuse it.
That's right. And again, since we're around all of these waterways, you're stopping what could actually create an algae bloom or something like that into a water system. And so you're controlling what then goes into the water systems, but then you can then pump that and spray it over your field.
It's cool. Yeah, it's really cool. Like the area that we're going to be growing a lot of our plants and vegetables is actually at the very bottom of this long casting rolling hill section of our farm. And even where we are going to do that, that's where we're planning to have our chicken coop. And the chickens play a huge part in like the vegetables that we're growing, right?
Not even when the vegetables are growing, but when you have turnover, then you're actually pulling those chickens into your fields, and they're able to pick through and help you with your insect population and basically turn things over.
So that's another thing. If we had an orchard, for instance, and you can plant some cover crops in there, and then bring in the chickens in who eat those cover crops, they're also fertilizing that land. They're eating the cover.
Well, that's what the ducks are for.
That's what the ducks are for. Okay.
I think as we have been trying to figure out how we want our farm to run, and especially now as dads, like I feel like I'm constantly thinking about the future of our children and what we're doing to this planet, to our environment, and how to make sure that we're leaving a better place and a more manageable place for our children, right?
Absolutely. We want to be able to meet our own needs without compromising the needs of future generations. We'll be building retention ponds and water catchment systems so that we can reuse the water that we catch here on our property.
We're planting lots of flower beds for cut flowers, but also that's going to be a great way to generate bees and pollination.
We'll be reusing some of the lumber and wood from old barns and structures here on the farm on our new structures.
And we're actually repurposing a ton of soil that's on the farm, taking good soil, that's topsoil that from another portion of our farm, and putting it to the areas that we're growing in our beds.
That is the benefit of 30 years of no use.
Yeah.
We don't know what we don't know, but we are taking the time to try to understand so that we do know.
Yeah.
And we also know that if we miss something, you'll let us know in the comment section.
Obviously, as we progress, I mean, I would love to be able to not serve bottled water in our market. Like if we can do box waters, or we can find renewable energy and all of the things that we can do, we're going to definitely try to do that here on this farm. But even if you're sitting out there and you're like, well, I'm not building a farm, like what can I do at home to make a difference? Well, there's a lot of things. One, you can compost, right? So there's a lot of waste that goes through our kitchens every single day, and you can actually take that and use that for your own gardens, or you can even take that compost and cuttings and the scraps and actually deliver it to a local farmer in your area.
Or if you don't, not a gardener yourself, find someone that is. They will be more than happy to take your scraps.
Yeah.
Even if you have a small garden at home, you can even retain that water by using rain barrels. It's an easy way to retain and access that water right there in your own home.
Yeah. it's really about really thinking outside of the box of really how we can protect our environment and protecting our futures. Like for instance, there's a local brewery here in North Carolina. They save all the mash, the spent grains from the brewery, and they actually deliver all this to a pig farmer that's local so that the pigs can eat this waste, that essentially what it is.
Yeah, it's a byproduct, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you don't own a brewery, but maybe you work for a company like a brewer who you can actually recommend that they use their byproducts for something more sustainable, like the example Dustin gave.
The main idea is just taking a look at what you have, what you do, and is there another benefit that can happen once you've accomplished what you think is the end use.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll actually provide some links in our description so that you can learn a little bit more of what you can do to be more sustainable.
Yeah.
Go team! Yay!
Now let's go do a quick tour.
Yeah. So all this is what? The green stuff on this pond, what is it?
Duckweed.
Duckweed. Do we like duckweed?
Duckweed acts as a shader for ponds, which helps keep algae bloom down, which is good. But then you can actually use it as a supplemental feed for animals as well.
So we'll feed this to like our chickens.
Old canoe chilling by the tree. We gotta get her back in action. Put her back to work.
Look at this little thing I just found. So cute. Alright, go live your best life. Be free.